Okay, this is Simon Parratt, HNC research context. Simon, can you just review the research methods that you used, please?
Yeah, basically I just looked through the books and wanted to back up the proof that I had on the books, because I read those books a while ago. I went through looking on the internet and found out more answers on the internet, and then looked through different magazines and stuff like that. Just that's the type of thing I did.
Through some internet sites, books and magazines. Let's just go to the books then. What books did you find particularly useful?
The drum handbook was probably the most useful one, because it doesn't just, it covers all the development with the equipment really, and gave me a lot of structure for how I wanted to do my presentation, you know.
Okay. In terms of you said you interviewed some people, or you spoke. Did you speak first-hand to anyone, or did you?
I've spoken first-hand to Steve Gadd.
So you did some first-hand research with Steve Gadd.
But this was over the times I've met him. It wasn't necessarily for the presentation. It was questions I'd asked him when I'd met him and stuff about, you know, how his career had developed and stuff like that. You know.
How would you compare that kind of research to sort of secondary research, where maybe you read a magazine article about Steve Gadd or a biography about him? What was the difference between actually talking to him himself?
Talking to him himself, you hear it from his mouth, so you're not sort of going on what somebody said about him. You're going from what you've heard and what you know he's said to you. You know.
So you think that was obviously a better research
method? It's a better research method. Yeah.
Okay. Can you justify the sort of framework that you did for the structure? Because it was quite a linear structure, a history of drum making. Can tell us what sort of worked well, and potentially what you could have done better, or what you think you could
I think the structure worked quite well, you know, going through how the kit developed and then showing influential players. But there's certain parts that I'd like to maybe put more information in about would be sort of the electric drum kit and stuff, because I struggle with my knowledge on that, but I thought it was important to at least get it in there so that to show that I recognised that it was a big innovation in the 1980s, 1990s. You know.
What problems did you find using the internet?
I found a lot of sites sort of contradicted each other, and there was a lot of different opinions on different sites. So I just went on sites that I knew, that I believed, you know, if there was a quote on the site, I sort of strongly believed in that quote. It's what I thought about the drummer, or it's what I thought about the equipment. And then the stuff that I'd taken off Wikipedia, I sort of checked it out with, you know, Rhythm magazine and stuff like that.
Right. So, discuss some of when you talk about the secondary research you did, sort of like looking at internet sites and stuff, and Wikipedia and maybe biographies.
DVDs as well. That
DVDs.
I've got at home. I've watched a lot of those.
What would you say that you researched a good breadth of research sources?
Yeah, I'd say I sort of almost covered all bases. I don't think there's sort of a research area that I left untouched.
Okay. And what did we say about the validity of the secondary sources? You said that you sort of cross-check stuff, and you said that some things contradict each other. Just give us an example of what you're talking about there.
Well, there's a lot of comments on Gene Krupa, sort of about because he wasn't the most technical drummer. A lot of people don't believe he was very iconic and stuff like that. But you really have to look at the books and the DVDs just to show how many people enjoyed listening to his music, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Finally, evaluate your research and then make recommendations of how you could take this further in the future. Let's say, for instance, you were going to turn this into a 40-minute video. What would be your recommendations for what you could sort of explore? Well,
I think I'd just take a lot more notes and go in a lot more detail about the way things progress, not just how they progress from the next thing to the next, but why they progressed, that type of thing.
what were the most valuable secondary sources of research? You said that the effectiveness of the primary stuff, the interviews you did with Steve Gadd, were really effective and helpful. What were the most effective sort of secondary sources? You mentioned the drum handbook. Were there any other sources like DVDs or?
Well, yeah, I've got the history of jazz drummers, and that was a great sort of secondary resource, not just for the influence, the drumming influences, but also the drum kit, because I could see from the DVD how the kits had developed, so it was sort of backing up my point, backing up things I'd read, because I could see it on the video how the kits had developed.
Excellent, thanks Simon.